The agenda is director's reports. We have a special item as the LMA properties and a status report on that. And then Charlie, I assume you have others status report items.
Yes, let me go through the other things first, and then I'll talk about the LMA properties. Just to keep you up to speed on what the City Council has been up to, they've had two meetings since you last met on June 7th and June 21st. On June 7th, they held a study session on the proposed Chiron security issues. They expressed unanimous disapproval of the concept of having gates on 53rd Street, and they expressed support for all of the other security measures that Chiron is proposing. They also held a study session on the South Bayfront pedestrian bicycle overcrossing on June 7th. And they agreed to hold off on further design of that facility until we find out whether or not we'll be able to acquire the so-called Emeryville yard. That is 4 of the 8 tracks that Union Pacific owns that the bridge would have to cross. And if we are able to acquire those 4 tracks, or 2 or 3 of them, it will definitely shorten the length of the bridge. It will widen the greenway. It will cause all kinds of design changes for the better in that area, but we at this point don't know whether we'll be able to get those 4 tracks or not. So hopefully within the next year we will know that, and then we can proceed with planning of that overcrossing. And finally, on June 7th, the council introduced the zoning ordinance amendment having to do with reasonable accommodations. You may recall that the commission approved that at a previous meeting. I think it was at your May meeting. The council introduced that ordinance on June 7th and passed it on June 21st. So that is now part of our municipal code. On June 21st, which was just the day before yesterday, the council held a study session on the wayfinding program. They approved the directional signs and authorized that they be fabricated and installed. However, they deferred any action on the boundary markers, the overhead signs, the pedestrian and bicycle signs, and the greenway logo, pending further study and involvement by various parties. They also agreed to consider including an analysis of sign clutter in the next operating budget. Also of interest to the commission, of special interest to the commission, is that they deferred taking any action on planning commission appointments at the June 21st meeting because Mayor Cassis was absent. The next commission meeting, as you know, will be July, 28th, I think. And the next council meeting is on July 19th. And so they will make the appointments on July 19th, which will be before your next commission meeting. Even though the terms expire on June 30th, that moot because they'll be able to make the appointments prior to your next commission meeting. News of the general plan update. The next meeting of the general plan update steering committee is next Tuesday, June 28th. And included on that agenda is a review of our consultant's report on the community workshop that was held in May, and also on the stakeholder interviews that have been ongoing. There will be a panel discussion and questions and answers on the Emeryville Center of Community Life. That will include the architect Roy Miller, as well as John Gooding, John Flores, and Tony Smith, the school superintendent. And then the committee will also continue brainstorming on various issues facing the city in the future. The topic for next week will be parks and open space. Finally, I just wanted to let you know about a development concerning the Ambassador Housing Project, which the commission approved some time ago. Oh, you don't? No. Never mind. We'll keep you informed about that later. All right, 11 Menzies, unless you have any questions about any of these other items. All right, 11 Menzies, as you know, has 3 pending projects, 46th Street Lofts, 1401 Park Avenue, and Doyle Street condominiums. They have this website that they told you about at their last meeting. They also advised the city council about it last Tuesday. It's called Emeryville living.com. It has a status report on each of these 3 sites as well as current photographs. The status report appears to be up to date and accurate. Concerning 1401 Park, they have now submitted revised plans in response to staff comments on the first set of plans for the building permit. And they say they hope to begin construction in mid-July and have a construction period of 14 months. That, of course, will depend on our review of the second set of plans to make sure that they have responded to all our comments and that we are able to issue a building permit in July. I can't say that for sure at this point or not, but that is where they are in the process. Flecto, the 46th Street lofts, they have now submitted a building permit application. They did that a couple of weeks ago, and that is now beginning the plan check process. That is for the foundation and podium of that project. For the Doyle Street project, we don't have anything yet, but they have begun some exploratory work on the interior of the building and engaged a landscape designer. They say that work will begin, I'm assuming they mean construction work, around September 1st. I'm not sure I think that's somewhat optimistic because they have not submitted a building permit application yet, but this implies that they will be doing so, and I believe they've told us in the past that they expect to submit a building permit application in July. So hopefully that project will be under construction, if not by September 1st, at least sometime not too far after that. And then the construction period for that project is 12 months. So that's where we are in 11 Menzies.
Charlie,
Happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, on 1401, how far off from the staff expectations were the first set of plans? Were there just minor things or were there some major things?
Let's see. Well, frankly, I can't recall. The main thing I check for is that it conforms to what the Planning Commission approved in terms of floor plans and elevations, and also anything outstanding on the conditions of approval. Typically, it's just routine things. I did check for all the 3-bedroom units, and I found all 6 of them. So they're definitely there in the plans now.
Thank you for that, because I know that at one point 2 of them got lost somewhere along
That's
the way.
right. I've been on their case about that, and they did put them back.
Thank you.
There were a few things like a color and material board that's required that they hadn't submitted yet, construction sign that actually is up on the site right now. I can't really remember what the other things were, but they were pretty routine.
Thanks.
The building division, of course, does a very thorough review of the plans to make sure that every aspect of the building code is covered, and they look at the structural calculations and all that kind of thing. And there's usually something, that has to be fixed the first time around for the building division.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Charlie? I did want to ask whether the commission wants to keep the LMA properties as a separate item under director's report, if we want to continue doing that.
At
get
least,
updates.
at least in the short run.
Seems to be effective. Next item are
Sir.
public hearings.
Excuse me, Commissioner Martin, what was the decision on that?
I think there was a yes.
We
That-
keep it on?
That's,
Yeah,
I
I think that's
saw
a
everyone
consensus.
shaking their heads, so we'll keep that on for now.